All right, welcome everyone. This is Lance Garner. I'm joined by Dave Morris. We just got wrapped up visiting with Bill Vanderheyden. He is the lead engineer and co-founder of Iron Will Outfitters. Iron Will Outfitters specializes in premium knives and broadheads, and we just had an awesome conversation with him. Shared some stories, but mainly focused on talking about his product, both products really, and how that all kind of came about in the history and
high-end products, not just your average broadheads. These are something you'd pass down from generation to generation. Honestly, yeah. I think you could.
Yeah, I thought what was awesome too is their warranty. That was really impressive, and I guess coming from my engineering background, I really appreciate the amount of time and attention that he puts into the design of it, right, and testing and so forth. So
well, and it shows that he's trusting his product if he's putting a warranty on it, because not a lot of people will do that anymore.
Yeah,
and the companies that do, I think of Badlands. Anything happens to your pack there, you almost get a new pack if they can't fix it.
Yeah.
So somebody like that's doing that with broadhead industry, archery industry type stuff, and not only that, as he's developing more products, the knives he's come out with, and I'm sure down the road something else will pop into his head and he'll come up with something else that's revolutionizes another part of the industry. It doesn't doubt me at all that he won't do that.
Yeah, we were just both saying after we listened to the podcast, when we did the podcast talking with him, I want to go out and get some of those broadheads. I'd love to get one of those knives. I mean, it's just some awesome products. So.
Yeah, because ultimately, why not have the best product if you can afford it?
You can afford it, and it improves your confidence and your capability. So
why not?
Yep. All right. Well, we will switch gears here and jump over to the podcast.
Perfect.
We're here with Bill Vanderheyden. He's the co-founder and lead engineer of Iron Will Outfitters, which is a company that specializes in premium arrow, broadheads, and hunting knives out of Loveland, Colorado. Thanks, Bill, for joining us today. We really appreciate being with us.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were just talking earlier how we kind of met up. We were actually out at the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation
Total Archery
Challenge shoot, and you happened to be right behind us. We were holding you up. And but overall, I think it was a good time, and that's how we kind of met. And so
gone from there.
Yeah.
But we do follow you on Instagram, and I'm always like, oh my gosh, this guy is an amazing hunter. The broadheads he's creating, they don't compete with anybody else that's out on the market right now. Honestly, from what I've seen in the blood trails alone, it's just unreal. It's almost like a gunshot has gone through that animal, is what I would put it as.
Yeah, we're to the point where we have enough customers now that I get emails and messages daily with people just kind of blown away by performance, and yeah, it's great to see all the success out there for sure. Yep, and I hunt as much as I can. And test the product as much as I can too, while still trying to run the company and keep product development moving forward. But yeah, I love bow hunting. That's really why I got into it.
Well, tell us more about it. Tell us about that background. I've been on your website, and I always enjoy when I do these podcasts because I like to get on the websites and kind of cruise around, read up on the products and the people and things like that. And you've got a great story behind all this. Kind of tell us a little bit about the background and how Iron Will Outfitters was started up.
Yeah, I've been a bow hunter, forever. Grew up in Wisconsin. My dad, grandpa, they were bow hunters. It's just something I really enjoyed doing, and it was whitetails back then. And moved to Colorado about 20 years ago. Got into elk hunting. Come on here for a job, an engineering job, at that time, and I've been a mechanical engineer doing product development for several companies over about 25 years. Prior to starting up the broadhead company, but really got into just developing broadheads after had a broadhead fail on an elk shoulder blade, and just really wanted to put some engineering into it and make a better product for myself. And really didn't think it would become a business, because I thought, I'm using the best materials, manufacturing processes. It's going to be too expensive. People won't want to pay that for it. But I think the timing was right when I had it ready. I think there was more of desire out there to pay more for premium products and things that really did perform better. And about 5 years later here, the company's it's grown a lot every year, and it's just been having great acceptance, I'd say. So yeah, it's gone well beyond what I thought it would. I actually have to learn how to run a company and stuff like that.
Yeah. Customer service is always fun.
Yeah. Customer service was a bit of a mess, and any of our customers listen out there, I apologize for what a mess it became this summer, with material shortages, shipment delays, and then orders being, much higher than anticipated. We got into kind of a mess with back orders, and I feel like we got it under control now. We added people in customer service, quite a few, and I feel like we're going to be back to having good customer service going forward, but it was a bit of a mess this summer, to be honest.
Well, and I think that's the case across every industry, across the entire world right now. The supply chain issues, everything that, because of COVID, right? It's just created a mess for everybody. So hopefully everybody kind of understands and recognizes that it's really out of the control of these companies, because there's just things they can't, they just can't, fix or correct themselves just because there's things that are out of their own hands. So. Yeah.
And I'd make commitments based on when I was supposed to get the bar stock in to make parts, and it gets, so I have a manufacturing schedule plan. I tell people, okay, that you bought that and then we sold out, but we'll ship it, in 3 weeks, and then material gets delayed, and you don't meet your commitments, and it's stressful. I wasn't having a whole lot of fun during the August time frame, for sure.
Yeah,
that was going out, but you're right. I think it was kind of industry wide, and hopefully we're on top of it and we'll do much better next year.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you guys do everything you possibly can to get the products out there. I'm curious too. I mean, do you just run the company now, or when you started up, you've got the engineering background, you're working in the engineering industry? What types of things were you doing in engineering? And are you still working, I guess, outside of Iron Will Outfitters doing other engineering, or is this your main gig now?
The only thing I'm doing outside of Iron Will Outfitters is I'm an adjunct professor of mechanical engineering down at University of Colorado, and I just teach one senior design project class, just a couple hours a week. And I was just down there yesterday, actually meeting with the student team. But I kind of just do that because I still like being connected with the university and some of the latest technology going on, and to kind of give a little bit back to I always really enjoyed being an engineer and engineered things to the highest level, and got a lot of great experience at large companies being able to use the latest technology and expensive, equipment, software, things like that. And what I see more and more, I have 2 kids now that are engineers that have gone through college, and one at CU, one at CSU. And I see just a lack in the curriculum, a lack in their importance that they put on getting people ready to get a job or even get a job.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of wanted to get involved with the mechanical engineering department and push more for seniors to have more knowledge of, okay, when you get out of school and you don't have all the answers right in front of you, on a problem, how do you solve something? How do you start with a blank sheet of paper, develop a product to meet requirements? And I've done that so much in the past. It's I'm good at advising them how to do it. And so even though I don't have time to do it anymore, I've continued that bit of work. But other than that, all the other jobs. When I started the company, I was doing expert witness work. So I was considered a mechanical design expert to the Patent and Trademark Office. So there'd be patent infringement lawsuits where I'd review designs and patents and say yes or no, it does or does not violate this patent, and give a declaration and testify. And so I did that work, not because it's any fun, because it's not, but because it pays a lot per hour. So I could do it part-time while the first 2 years of the company, I didn't pull a paycheck. I was working, full time. So that was my side job to pay the bills there.
Smart.
Well, I've got an
Yeah.
engineering background. I'm a manager now, but I completely understand what you're talking about when you talk about the industry and people coming out of college and being ready to actually work and so forth. So I think that's awesome that you get involved in these senior design type projects and helping them understand the real world, I guess I'll call it.
Yeah. Like an hour of advice a week and they can just take it and run with it. They're, very sharp kids. They've got the background. There's just a big gap there between what you learn in school and how you apply it
Yeah.
in the real world. And yeah, so even though I don't have time for doing that, I feel like it's worthwhile. It's not. I mean, the amount they pay me isn't worth my time to do
Yeah.
it, to be honest. But it's. I feel like it's just helping have stronger engineers in the U.S. going forward. So that's kind of why I want to do it.
That's awesome.
That's impressive.
Well, I think your engineering background really comes out with the design of the knives and the broadheads. I mean, I can tell that as I look through them and as I see some of the testing you've done, looking at the forces and different things like that for the broadheads and everything. You can tell that you really have that background and that passion of engineering and trying to produce a high quality product.
Yeah, I at the various companies I worked at, I've always kind of had the most challenging project and tried to push the product to the next level and make it twice as good as it was, the year before, kind of thing, and use the latest engineering tools to do that. And when I had that broadhead fail on an elk shoulder blade, I really kind of thought, all right, I'm going to apply some engineering and look and see what's been done, what the research is. And I just saw this big lack of engineering being applied. Um, most everything was made just kind of for low cost manufacturing rather than being engineered to the highest level with best materials, best process, things like that. So it's, yeah, really, I wanted to apply that to what I was passionate about, which is bow hunting. And because I knew from experience that with good engineering time put into a product, it's going to get better, year after year, and you can really push it to a much higher level than where it's at. And I think there's just a lack of that, and for broadheads in particular.
Yeah.
And there's 75 new broadheads every year, but they're all the same junk to me if I look at them. It's just a little tweak on the looks, but it's the same stuff going into them. So
Well, I appreciate that as a consumer that I can trust a product knowing that someone is backing it like you with their engineering expertise and their passion for having a quality product. So I think that means a lot to the consumers. So
Yep.
let's talk more about the broadhead. So you had this experience, you had a failure with a broadhead, so you decided, hey, I'm going to come up with something better. I guess I'm going to call it a two-blade broadhead, essentially, with the bleeder blades on it. Tell us more about kind of the broadheads in general and what it is that you guys provide.
yeah, so through a lot of early testing of different broadheads out there, I started seeing the big advantage in penetration that two blades had over three blades. I was always a three blade guy, prior to that. And really that drove me to look more down the two blade line. And then after a little bit of time, I realized what an opportunity there was in sharpness and edge retention. You'd think broadheads would all be sharp and retain their edge, but surprising how many aren't very sharp. And once you push them through hide, the edge is gone because they're cheaper steel, softer steel, things like that. So, but the design, I went through 5 different steels, so I found steel that had the best impact strength, along with that high hardness, edge retention capability, sharpening capability, and settled on A2 tool steel. It's used for metal stamping dies and punches. It's just got excellent toughness. Can be sharpened up. It can be 60 Rockwell C hardness and yet be extremely tough, not brittle, which you don't get that with stainless steels at all. If you're a high hardness, you're brittle. You're gonna chip. You're gonna snap the blades. If you try to get that high hardness for that edge retention. So, anyways, settled on a 2-blade design. For the first couple of years, I didn't have bleeders. Just throughout the testing, occasionally you'd have a really poor blood trail with just a 2-blade. Not a lot, but once in a while, it'd be like no blood on a deer or an elk. And I really feel like it's just because that single slice can just close up depending on the orientation of, the hide and how it's tensioned in the muscles and things like that. And that's when I started adding the bleeder, iterated on that design a number of times until I got it to where I really liked it. Wasn't compromising strength. It was set back, so it had minimal change in penetration, but yet it opened up that cross-cut hole, so you always get some blood out. But that's basically the design. It's a two-blade with bleeders, 62 thousandths thick, A2 tool steel. The ferrules are either grade 5 titanium in the lighter weight, because you really can't beat grade 5 titanium for strength to weight ratio. Get enough and have enough material to have a really strong ferrule on, say, a 100-grain head. Now we use hardened stainless steel for the higher weights as we go. But that's basically the design. And then we start out with a vented, our V series, and then went to a solid blade, our S series, and then our wide series, which is just took that main blade from 1.16" up to 1.3/8" wide with 3/4 inch bleeder. So it's a 2.125" total cut broadhead. That's become really popular for whitetails, hogs, bears, things where the shots are typically, under 50 yards, under 40 often with those. Whereas our other heads, they shoot really well at very long range. So mule deer, elk, antelope, out west, big game. I'd recommend kind of our S series or V series, our standard size heads.
Have you had one particular that's just been the most popular?
Our S series is the most popular. It's just the V and S, the blade shape is identical, but the solid S series just is, it's a solid blade. There's no venting. It's quieter. It's stronger for that reason. And that's been our top seller. We added single bevel option. It's really that same blade, but it's ground instead of a double bevel. It's ground as a single bevel. Mm-hmm. And we introduced that this last year, and that's a close second. That's become really popular. You get some rotation through the animal, and I can't say it's going to penetrate further, although Ashby studies and others out there tout that single bevels out penetrate double bevels. Mm-hmm. Man, I don't know. I mean, they both penetrate so well with our broadheads. It's really kind of hard to say, but I mean, the physics wouldn't tell me that it would penetrate further because it's got to rotate. So versus the other one just slicing straight through should take less energy and needing some, requiring some torque to rotate. But at the same time, you have that rotational momentum from your arrow at impact, and that provides some of that torque. And so maybe it doesn't. Maybe it penetrates just as well, but I don't really see why it would penetrate better. But they both penetrate great. The single bevel rotates, so the holes are they're opened up a little bit more. They're the holes through the hide are almost kind of square in shape because of that rotation with bleeders and the way it cuts as it's moving through. So anyway, those have been really popular. Those have been really popular this year too.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, they look like some great broadheads. Do you, for me at least, I've always bought, I don't want to say cheap broadheads. I felt like I bought good quality broadheads, but I've always treated them as throwaways. If I kill an animal, when I'm done, I'm throwing that broadhead away. The philosophy, I guess, behind these broadheads, they're reusable. You can resharpen them. I mean, that's kind of the idea, I assume.
Yeah, and I always had that mindset too. In the past that I never reshoot a broadhead on an animal. But as I started through, developing the products and building, 100 broadheads or so per year to just test, they're really expensive. And I would try to get as much out of them as I could. And I just realized that often one shot and it can still shave hair with it. So I was getting multiple animals per broadhead and often would only have to touch it up after a couple of shots, a couple of animals, and just touch it up a little bit. But I was getting, multiple animals, and then I just kind of realized that, hey, it's a change in mindset, but it's real. You can use these broadheads over and over, and kind of decided at that point to do a lifetime warranty because I wasn't seeing them getting damaged on animals. You might need a touch up, but anyway, yeah, I mean, they do cost more, but I think if you look at how many disposable heads you buy versus buying ones that you can reuse, I think you might be money ahead with the more expensive broadheads.
I agree. Yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, if you're of that philosophy is just keep using it, it makes sense to me. I mean, if to buy a high quality product that you know's had that backing behind it to use it forever, as long as you don't bust a rock or something like that, right?
Yeah, they do pretty good on rocks, but you'll smash in the edges on rocks. And
Yeah.
so, and if it's not something you can sharpen out, if you're shooting through an animal and hit a rock, we still warranty that. So,
Oh, wow. Well, tell us more about that. Now that you mentioned the warranty, I want to hear more about it. I mean, kind of what does that entail? You say lifetime. What does that entail?
yeah, if you bend it or break it, we replace it, and we limit it to shooting at or through an animal. At this point, at one point we were kind of just replacing everything, but it was just there was some abuse. There we'd get guys shooting groups at 20 yards and put three broadheads into the back of each other and in targets and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't care because they knew they were getting it replaced. But
Yeah.
if it ends up driving up our cost, so to avoid increasing the cost for those people kind of abusing the warranty, we just changed it a little bit. So you just got to be shooting at or through an animal, because a lot of guys would shoot through targets and hit their barn or their concrete building, and we replaced a ton of those heads, but kind of limited at this point that, all right, that's kind of your problem if you do that. But if you're shooting at an animal, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just trying to kill an animal, and it gets damaged at all, we replace it. So,
well, that's an awesome warranty. I mean, I guess I just figured when I saw the lifetime warranty, I was thinking more like just like defects, things like that. But knowing that, hey, they'll replace these blades if I shoot an elk and it gets damaged or whatever, that's pretty significant, to be honest. And I think that's awesome for you guys as a company to do that for the consumers.
yeah, initially I just I knew they were expensive. And people are worried about, if it's once and gone, it's a lot of money, and wanted to leave or take some of the pressure off, thinking that no, this you really can reuse it. If it does break, we'll replace the blade or whatever. So, no, I think it's been good overall. The people seem to appreciate it, and we get a lot of happy return customers.
Well, that's cool. I'm one of those guys. It's kind of fun to sharpen things, right? It's kind of fun to sharpen your knives or whatever else. So, you have some broadheads that I guess you really care about, and you get to resharpen them and take care of them. And it's kind of, I guess, part of that whole hunting experience.
Yeah, sharpening's kind of a lost art, and some people love doing it, and a lot of people don't. So, uh, we don't warranty sharpening. If you shot a bunch of animals and say, hey, I can't shave hair anymore, we've got YouTube videos on how to touch them up.
Yeah.
And we sell replacement blades, and you can use that old blade for practice and put a new blade in when you go to the field or whatever. But yeah, it's been interesting just seeing. I mean, I get a ton of questions on how to sharpen broadheads. Every time I'm at some event, I'm demonstrating it for people. It seems like, but yeah, it's kind of a lost art. Some people are very good at it. Some people can't do it to save their lives. So.
Yeah.
That's funny. What about, it looks like to me, looking at the website, there's lots of options, right? So as far as the weight of the broadhead, the different type of inserts, you offer it in, your basic, I guess I'll call it insert. You've got the Easton 4mm shafts, what they call the Deep Six. Then you got the Aaron Snyder, I guess you call it the core system. So it looks like there's lots of options out there if people are interested in their particular type of arrow shaft. So it's good.
Yeah, I really like I've always liked hit inserts for the fact that you align the broadhead shank to the ID of the arrow, and you kind of know it's going to spin true. And what I didn't like is they were typically pretty soft materials, aluminum or brass, and that there wasn't a lot of reinforcement to the sides of the arrow if you got like a side impact. So I licensed the hit insert technology from Easton so I can make high strength hits. And then I make this part we call the impact collar that goes over the outside of the arrow. It's a sleeve with a flange on the front. It overlaps at hit insert and just reinforces that arrow. And through a lot of bone testing and things over the years, I had been making those for myself just to reinforce arrows. Because once you have a strong broadhead, that's that connection to the arrow is kind of the next weak point.
Mm-hmm.
So that, yeah, those have been really popular in the last couple of years as well. That component system, we call it the reinforced hit system.
What about this? It's called the. I guess I want to say it's called the Tonto Tip. I mean, tell us more about that tip, that shape design that you've come up with, and the benefits of it.
Yeah, so Tonto basically mean in a Tonto sword, it's a sword that's cut shorter and it's got a different angle at the tip, to make it kind
Okay.
of a stronger tip. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what the history of the Tonto, and or why they call that shape that. But what it is if you just have a main blade and it's just at one angle all the way out to the tip, that tip gets to be weaker than if you say you started out at that one angle. And I think that main triangle is like 22 degrees per side, and then at the end there it goes to 40 degrees per side, or 80 degrees included at that tip. So it shortens it up, which improves flight for one. There's not as much surface area, and it also kind of adds some width at that tip, adds some strength at the tip. And that was through a lot of testing of two blade heads. What I saw is, okay, they outpenetrate three blades, but they often break the tip on a hard impact or a bone or something like that. And it wasn't just me. I mean, you could see that in the literature and different studies as well. And so adding that Tonto tip, just that second angle at the tip to shorten it up and strengthen the tip was pretty key to getting the strength where I needed it, so it can go through bones, and not be damaged. And it's if you would have told me you can shoot through, like my brother and I both did this on our last deer hunt. We both shot through leg bones on deer. His was on Ian went through a scapula and then a leg bone, and I think I just went through like meat of the shoulder and a leg bone. Cut the leg bone clean in two.
Wow.
These are 3.5-year-old bucks.
Wow.
When we walked up to his buck, the bone was sticking out of the side of the animal, like a compound fracture there. And it's and I have people sending me images of that all the time. They're kind of blown away that, and then they'll show me a photo of the broadhead, like it cut through this bone and you don't see anything wrong with the head. And at one time I didn't know if you could achieve that, but you really can. I mean, with tool steel, 60 rock will see hardest, that toughness, you can do it. And a friend of mine that's a stradbow hunter, I just heard from a friend of a friend that he shot a deer yesterday and went through a leg bone with his recurve on the near side. So that's a deer he would have lost if he didn't cut clean through that leg bone and then go through the heart afterwards. So
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty. If you've never seen it, I don't know, you might not believe it, but it happens. It's true. You can follow our people tagging us on Instagram and see the different photos people are putting up showing that.
Yeah, I saw some of the video too. You got out on YouTube actually, where you've done some tests, and yeah, it's pretty impressive, pretty damaging.
Yeah.
what they can do.
Yeah, and that's honestly, I think, kind of I would think is a bonus. Sometimes you don't make that perfect shot where you want to hit, and if it goes a little forward, then you're not so worried about the shoulder blade or the leg blade, bone or whatever. If it's just going to blow right through it, then you're still going to have a good shot.
Yeah, exactly. It's do you need an iron broadhead to kill a deer? Well, no, of course you don't. I mean, a million have been killed with thunderheads, and that's very low cost head. Now, if you hit that bone, you wish you would have had an iron will probably.
Yeah.
And it opens up shot opportunities as well. Like my brother's buck, it was quartering too when it stopped and he shot at it. And it's normally a shot that in the past I wouldn't have considered an archery shot, a good archery shot. But and I'm not going to tell people to do that shot. You have to know, like, he's got a 70-pound bow, he's got a 500 grain arrow. We've shot through enough deer at different angles that we know what it's going to do. And he was 100% confident he'd go through it. And not only did he go through that near side shoulder blade, go through the vitals, but it cut through the offside leg bone and stuck in the ground. So, wow. I mean, there was no question that he was going to get the kill, but it opens up that shot opportunity. Like, that deer was on high alert, and it was like, shoot him then, or I'm not going to get the shot, is what he felt. And so, and I know if you're shooting a mechanical, you would not want to take that angle.
No way. Yeah.
Things like that, or even straight down through the spine. We get a ton of people that I've talked to that were shooting mechanicals, but either hung up on a shoulder blade or hung up on the spine, or they hit some bone to where they didn't penetrate and they lost the animal. And that's how we get a lot of customers, is people that are just trying to be able to make a kill shot. And that's really why I started. I had that failure on an elk, and I worked so hard to get that shot, and it was a nice bull, and it was killing me. Yeah. That if my broadhead had just got through that scapula, I'd have this bull right now. So.
I think we've all been through it. We could probably start a support group up for all of us.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's switch gears and talk the knives. I've been checking out the knives. There's a couple on there that I've seen, the K1 Ultralight hunting knife, and then you've got the K2 Ultralight skinning knife. I guess tell us a little bit about the differences in those knives, but maybe before you go into that, I think a lot of people, including myself, probably before I got maybe the last couple of years, is just a knife's a knife. It's just got to have a sharp edge, and that's about it. But there's so many, I want to say, components to a knife. Maybe explain some of the components of a knife to all of us, and then maybe we can talk about, then what these knives offer.
Yeah, and I never really had planned to do knives. I was kind of wanted to meet a need for myself that I saw was kind of missing out there, which was I'm a backcountry hunter. I backpack in and I count ounces. I don't as much as I used to, but to have a couple of knives, I was having close to a pound of weight, and I really wanted and I'm not big on the replacement blade knives. I think the blades just break too easy, and changing them. I mean, every one of my buddies that use them has cut themselves in the field.
Mm-hmm.
I've been patching them up. So I know that exchange of that blade breaking. Okay, where did it break? And
I've seen that myself. A lot of people getting cut, and it seems like to get through an elk, you're replacing a lot of blades. By the time you're done.
Yeah, and I know it's what most guys do these days, but I was a guy that I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have a fixed blade knife, but yet I didn't want the weight. I wanted it to be light. I wanted to be able to get through a whole elk for as light of blade as possible. So anyways, I used, the knowledge of the steels from the broadheads I worked through, and I knew with that high toughness, I could thin up the spine of the blade a bit and get that weight down, and get good edge retention and everything. So it's a skeleton version that you can just kind of wrap with paracord. It only weighs 1 ounce. So for a 7-inch knife with a 3-inch blade, so it's a full-size knife that only weighs 1 ounce.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I was carrying two knives that were weighing, 5 to 8 ounces each prior to that.
Yeah.
So now just having in that knife, I can get through. I can completely. I've done up to 2 animals, but very confidently get through an elk. Skinning, quartering, deboning, finishing it up, even caping if you need to.
Dang.
But I've done an elk and a mule deer. Or I've done an elk and a bear. I've done that with just only bringing one knife in the field.
Now, and when you say going through a whole elk, you're talking not having to resharpen it?
Right. Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive, because that's one of the things I was curious about, is what a person could expect out in the field. Should they really be carrying some sharpening tools or not, or can they get through the whole animal? So that's awesome. That's impressive.
So what I've found is that varies a lot by operator. Some guys are just hacks, but I think that what dulls a knife is the hide. So in one version of our K1 knife, or the original version, and I just redid that K1 knives and made it a 2-version option. And one has this sharp top and the other one doesn't. We call that the grip top. But
that sharp top, by the way, scares the heck out of me. Because I'm so used to putting
Are you one of those
finger...
hackers? He's one of those hackers you were talking about.
It just depends on how you're used to holding a knife. And I've learned this too, since I came out with the sharp top, that we had people buy them and then send them back saying, I'm afraid to use this thing.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like,
People either love them or they don't. If you use a knife by just hanging onto the handle, and you can put your thumb, up to halfway up the blade, and then there's kind of a stop. But the front half of the blade, the top of it, is sharp. And what I do with that is I use that to make all my high cuts. So I'll rip up the legs, go around the animal, do all the high cuts with that top edge. And so then as you start skinning then and deboning, the belly of the knife is still pristine. So that's why I like it. It's kind of two knives in one. It only weighs an ounce. Or with the CNC machined handle, which is the way I really like to use it now, it's just 1.6 ounces for a fully handled, full-size knife, basically. You can't beat that. I think other ones out there are double or more of that typically, or much more. But we did make this grip top version, and so that's for the people who like to put their finger, up the blade or on top of the blade, or if you're gutting an animal, and you want to run your finger up below the knife and kind of against the guts, so you're not cutting the guts as you rip up that belly and stuff like that. So that works well for that. And yeah, I mean, they're light enough you can carry one of each if you want to, and have that extra option there.
And that's something that is when I talk about like components of a knife. You've got the back edge, if you will, where you've put that grip on it to help, I guess, kind of guide it and use it appropriately. So you're more finesse maybe, and more control over the knife when you're doing your skinning.
Yeah, I've spent a lot more time the last 3-4 years, like digging into knife design and what features people like and how they like to use them, and it's added features to the knives as I went. But yeah, that up along the spine, that little finger grips, or that jimping they call it. Where do you want that? And it kind of depends on how you're using the knife, but put that at the front for people that likes to guide their knife accurately like that. Some people like to kind of pinch the handle, and so I've got little finger grips at the front of the handle that, and I've never really done this, but you can very accurately make cuts that way too if you want to hold the knife that way. So yeah, there's some features there. And another thing that I've been playing around with is, you've got the bevel angle of the sharp edge, which is 19 degrees per side on this knife. But then you've also got kind of a secondary saber grind, and then you've got a thickness, they call it like a thickness behind the edge. So I've been playing around with different thicknesses there to kind of dial that in to have the strength and toughness I want, but yet cut really easily through the knife. Along with the black ceramic coating that's new here recently.
Yeah, so, I saw that.
Yeah, I just keep adding, nice features to it.
Tweaking it just a little bit and making it better, of course.
That's the engineer in you.
Yeah.
Well, so that's the one you were showing us there, I believe, was the hunting knife. And then you've got kind of the skinning knife that's got kind of a different radius to it.
Yeah, this is kind of modeled over an old knife that I used to that I used to like for skinning, and then I played on a bunch of different geometries and handles. But basically, if you've got a larger sweeping radius like this and this thicker blade of a couple inches thick, it's much easier to skin and not poke through. I've used this geometry a lot, and you can hold it by the handle, or I put the blade's wide enough. I've got a hole all the way through where you can put your finger through it. I mean, ergonomically, that's really nice. You can know where you're going to drop this blade. You don't have to grip very tight. You can have a loose grip and it's just such a positive hole on the knife. That's pretty nice. Sometimes if you're skinning, like if I'm skinning a hog, wild hogs in Texas that I like to test broadheads on, their hide's so thick, it's like a 1/2 inch thick and so stiff that it really works better to hold back on the handle so you can get that knife down further in there, because it's hard to pull that hide away as much. So there's kind of a couple hand positions, but it's really that large sweeping radius and the wide blade, and that tip is it's not a long pointy tip. It's kind of a shorter tip, but a big wide blade from there, and a big radius. And I was just playing around recently on skinning a couple of deer with the different knives we have. And no doubt that is this geometry is nice for skinning, and not cutting. The tip really never gets into the skinning part.
Right.
And if I try to skin something really quick, I'm often cutting through, and I don't keep the capes that often on animals, but if I do, or if I'm helping somebody else who want to keep it, it's really nice to have this one to do that and not cut through the hide.
One of the things I like about that skinning knife with the hole that you have there in the blade, not only just lets your finger kind of hold on to something, but as you put your finger through the hole, you can kind of guide it and control it even better too, because your fingertips kind of against the animal meat as you're kind of skinning, so that gives you that extra, like I said, control.
Yeah, you're choked up closer, so you can kind of more accurately make those cuts too.
Yeah. What do you find is most popular? Which one's more popular, the K1 or the K2, the skinning or the hunting knife?
Well, I'd say it's pretty close. I think the first gen K1, we just about sold out of K2. So by the time this podcast comes out, you won't be able to buy a K2 because I'm working on a Gen 2 right now, and it's going to take some time to build. But I'd say the K2 is pretty popular. I think we only had that a year or so, and we sold out everything I planned to build there. The K1, our second generation now, which we just launched in August, so it was really kind of late, and we didn't even have all the models till a month ago. So it was a bit late for this hunting season, but these have been selling well, and I would say there's a lot of interest. So, for sure, our K1s are going to outsell our K2s right now because we don't have any K2s. But we'll see when I get the next round. I still feel like the K1 is it's just an all-around great hunting knife, and there probably be more people buying that. But for guys that maybe they already have a hunting knife they like, or an everyday carry knife that meets the needs of this, and they want to have more of a specialty skinner, that might want to just pick up that knife.
Well, heck, for an ounce each, buy them both, and you only got that's only 2 ounces.
Exactly. This is my kill kit right here.
Yeah.
Both of them. Yeah.
That's smart.
And like you pointed out, the great thing about that, the weight on those is especially for those backcountry hunters that like to really count every ounce and really pay close attention to those kind of things.
I think it applies to any hunter, honestly. I mean, if you carry a pack, you don't want to have 20 pounds worth of stuff that you're not going to use. If you can have an ounce or two that you don't even care about until you need it.
Yeah, I was just on a podcast with John Stallone a few days ago, and he said the same thing, that he's not a backpack hunter, but he hikes a ton of miles. So he was really interested in the knives too, and just having less weight in his day pack, as he tries to go all day long. And I can relate to that as well, for sure.
Yep.
Well, I want to hear a little bit more now about your hunts you've been going on. We've been trying to line this thing up, and you've been out doing some hunting. What have you been out hunting lately?
Yeah, in the fall, you got to prioritize hunting. The fall only comes around once a year. So, I don't fault anybody that I was supposed to have a meeting with if they cancel and go hunting. I understand.
Right.
Yeah, it's been good. In fact, I kind of hunt year round now. I hunted, in January I was still hunting deer in Texas and hogs, and then in April was hunting hogs and turkeys, and in June I hunted in Hawaii for rams and pigs over there, and then when August came around, went up to Alaska for a 10-day drop camp fly-in deal for caribou. That was a repeat trip, but I love it up there in the wilderness. Just caribou and grizzly bears around up there. And then I went into, September, I got a bull elk up in Wyoming. I did some elk hunting in Colorado as well. And then October, I hunted deer in Texas on the opener, shot a really nice buck on the opening weekend there. And then I did a kind of a deer tour. After that, I hunted Indiana, and in Wisconsin as well
Nice.
there. And then came back to Colorado and mule deer hunted here just a few weeks back. Got a real nice mule deer buck. So
Yeah, I saw that on Instagram. It was a nice buck.
yeah, thanks. So yeah, it's been good. It's kind of hard to keep the company going and running sometimes, but it's it's testing the products gives me that knowledge of how they're working and what I want to work on next. So it's what I enjoy doing.
You got employees that you can just have them hold down the fort while you're gone?
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty good team. There's some things that I need to do, but I need to also just add the right people so I can just trust them to and hand some of that stuff off. That's been a bit of a struggle because when I started, I kind of did well. I did half of the stuff. I had a partner who was kind of my marketing. He handled sales, marketing, the website updates, and then I handled design, product development, testing, any of the kind of engineering, along with manufacturing. And my partner left after a couple of years of us not drawing salaries, and then I had to take over, everything else, the business side, and accounting, taxes, whatever. And I got my marketing guy back. He's supporting me now, but there's things that, I need to hand off more stuff as the company grows here. For sure.
That's always hard.
Customer service is one. I feel like we got customer service under control. Got a manager there and a few people working under there, and that's kind of shored up to take less of my time. But there's other areas where I could improve our team, I think.
Yeah, I think I own a business as well, and it's hard to release the reins, so to speak. And because you just don't know. I mean, is the product going to get done, or is your services going to get done the right way? And you just hope and trust that your employees do a good job and do a good face for you out there in the community, and that's all you can do.
Yeah. There's a time where every phone call or email I was answering them. It was all the tech support was directly from me, helping me pull their setups or whatever. And I still do some of that, but it was too much. I wasn't getting any other work done there.
So every time someone would call, it'd be like, tech support, this is Bill. Customer service, this is Bill.
Engineering. I think that's one of the jokes that you were telling us, that when you handed me your business card, it's like you change your title like every 6 months or so on your business card or something.
I had a few different cards there. I had to figure out which one to hand off to you. There.
Well, you hear that story more often than not, that people that try to start up their own business, as you had mentioned, I think you went, what'd you say, like 2 years you went without a paycheck. I mean, that's pretty common. I think people got to recognize that to jump into this industry, or maybe any industry, sometimes those are the things you have to go through. There's a lot of struggles, no paychecks, things you got to go through to get these companies up and running and going well.
Yeah, and I was going to say I was at the right place in my life. I don't know if that's actually true though. I had 3 kids in college when I started the company, so that's not.
Oh wow.
That actually wasn't the greatest time financially, but I had more time because kids were out of the house at that point, all but one. Mm-hmm. But I guess I had the advantage that I could work part-time doing jobs. I did some engineering consulting and some expert witness work, and I could get a good salary, kind of per hour, and cover the costs of my basic living costs and expenses and development costs while putting a lot of hours into the business. So yeah, I think a lot of times when people want to jump in the outdoor industry and start a new company, I'd say, you can't really quit your day job. Usually you have to, and that's probably the truth in any business you're starting up, is you still need that income coming in for a while you get it off the ground.
Yep.
Yeah. Any advice you'd give someone that's thinking about jumping into the industry and maybe starting their own business?
I've often thought, man, I wish I'd done this 20 years ago. But at the same time, I don't know that I could have done it 20 years prior. I think a lot of things, definitely the whole social media side helps the
Yeah.
cost of it. It drops that cost of marketing and advertising. There's more time required, maybe, but that's something that, years ago, to launch a new broadhead, if you're going to pay for ads in magazines, a half page ad is $4,000. That's more than my marketing budget was the first year, so I think that the timing's kind of right for somebody to be able to start with a small company and get the word out. You can be active on forums, you can be active on social media, and it doesn't cost you anything to do those, really, or very little.
Yeah.
And you can kind of get people to see your product. So that's cool. It's got to be, you can't just say, I want to jump in the outdoor industry and then just come up with a product that you think is going to work. I think it's got to be something that's compelling and something that's really better than what's out there. I mean, that's how I feel personally, being an engineer, is that you got to have a good product. You might interview a marketing guy and he would tell you the opposite. I know, I've worked with him a lot, past companies, like, oh, because I'd often want to put more money to make a better product. And we'd have this, meeting, and the marketing guy would say, no, we can sell it anyways. You don't have to make it cost anymore. Because, and a lot of bigger companies have that thought that if we just put money into marketing, it will sell, and we can still cheapen the product, and it doesn't have to be a good product, it'll sell. But I think that catches up to you over time, for sure. So,
well, and I think it's hard too, because I think a lot of companies that start out with a really good product, and eventually they get bought out by somebody, and then the quality goes down and down and down and down, just so they can make it cheaper and make more money and yada yada yada. And I think
no doubt,
I think
no
that's
doubt.
so hard.
Yeah, I mean, if any, how do I say this, not anger too many people, but any product that's been, it was developed, it was a good product, and it's bought out by a bigger company, almost always they're just looking at how can we, they bought the company because they saw an opportunity to make money off it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And how do they maximize profits? Well, make it as cheap as possible. And a lot of times it's they change the material, they change the supplier, it becomes a cheap piece of junk. Where maybe it wasn't, maybe it was pretty good to start with, and it just isn't anymore. And I just, seeing all that happening every year was part of the reason it drove me to do what I did with this company.
Well, and I think you mentioned social media and the value of that in advertising and so forth. And I think in the same way, it's kind of a detriment to companies if they don't produce a quality product, because as consumers, we'll find out eventually, right, if something's a good quality product. And with social media, people like to talk. They like to share what's good. They like to say what's bad. And so that's why it's super critical to have a good quality product, because that information is going to get out there a lot faster today with social media than when it used to.
Yep.
And I think it's a big bonus for people that actually have a good product.
Yeah.
And it's a negative for companies that are putting out junk and just doing the marketing. They'll still sell a lot the first year, but then nobody's talking about it the next year or 2 years later, because there's been enough negative feedback on it and enough people have seen that. So yeah, totally. I think if you really have a better product and people are, to be honest, what really helped with our broadhead is after that first year, enough people had tried it and enough people were kind of blown away by the performance or penetration compared to what they'd seen previously, that they want to tell people about it. They want to come back and tell us about it. They want to show it on a forum or on social media or whatever. And if a product's just so-so or a little bit better, they're probably not motivated to do that. But if you have really a standout product, I think, the way things are today with social media and the word getting out quickly is a big benefit to those type of small companies.
Well, and I honestly think too, if you've got a once in a lifetime hunt, why wouldn't you spend the extra money to have that opportunity to kill something better? why would you spend all this time, 20 years putting in for a tag and go buy a $20 broadhead and hope it works?
Yeah, year one, like in 2017 when we launched, it seemed like I had to answer that question a lot. Why would I pay $30 for a broadhead when I can get one for 10? But I think people are starting to come around to realize that, like, and a lot of guys, like, if they're coming out for an elk hunt or something, they're spending a lot of money on tags and gas, and even just guys deer hunting in their home state. Think about how much money you're spending on all the other things related to your hunt. And when you get that shot at that big buck with bigger bones and, he ducks and turns into the arrow, having that extra peace of mind that is going to go through the shoulder blade versus not, is that worth an extra $15 or $20 to you?
Yeah.
Man, it sure is to me.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, confidence, especially in bow hunting, confidence is critical. So having good equipment you can trust, rely on, I think is so valuable. Like I said, particularly for archery hunters. And I think you got to spend your money where it makes the most sense. I would rather spend my money on the equipment that's going to kill the animal, and make sure I make like a good clean kill, accurate kill, do the things I need to actually harvest the animal, because that's what I'm trying to ultimately do, versus maybe some more of the high technology stuff that's out there. And I'm terrible at it. I like to buy all the new technology, this and that, but you're much better served to invest in the right products that are going to help you actually be successful in the field, instead of so many of the, I guess I'll call it gimmicky items that are out there that just really don't pay off, I think, in the end. So.
Yeah, I mean, a well-tuned bow. It doesn't have to be a new bow either. I mean, I get new bows every year, but often I'd rather shoot the one that's 3 years old. I'm just more comfortable with it at times. So guys are getting a new bow every year. But then complain. That happens too. Guys get a new bow every year, maybe a new F-150 every 2 years. They'll complain about the cost of the broadhead.
Yeah.
Thinking, man, drive that truck one more year, and you could buy broadheads for life.
Yeah.
Or shoot that bow, 2 or 3 years instead of one. But no, I don't care what people want to spend their money on, but I definitely think that get a well-tuned bow, and it doesn't have to be a new bow. Anything in the last 5 years is a great bow from the major manufacturers.
Yeah.
Learn how to tune it, get the arrow coming off straight, and get good arrows that are, they spin true and are spine consistent, and put good broadheads in the front, and you're just way ahead in bow hunting versus a lot of the other gear and equipment out there, in my opinion.
Yep. Oh, I agree. Absolutely. Well, should we wrap this one up?
We'll let you get back to your design work.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll see you later.